Welcome to Sports Saved My Life. My name is Clayton Freck, and I'm the CEO and founder of Angel City Sports. We know the power of sport to change and in some cases save lives. We hear these compelling stories every day, and we created this show to share them with the world. Enjoy the show, and remember to like, follow, share, and comment. And I'm beyond excited to interview one of my favorite people on this planet, Rudy Garcia Tolson. I've known Rudy, and our family's known Rudy for over 15 years. We met him back in 2005. I think we'll share that story later. And it was a year after his first Paralympic Games. Rudy's a 4-time Paralympian, 5-time medalist, 2-sport Paralympian, which is kind of rare. And he's currently planning a comeback to make his 5th Paralympic Games. So, beyond just being an amazing athlete, he's an amazing human being. And, he's been an ambassador for the adaptive sports movement and specifically for the Challenge Athletes Foundation for over a decade. And just a mentor to literally kids around the world. Probably hundreds of kids, if not thousands, are following Rudy's journey, including, my very own son, Ezra, who's known Rudy since early days. So without further ado, Rudy Garcia Tolson. So, Rudy, before we dig into the details of your life and journey, which I know enough about, but I know I'm going to learn some new things. I'm going to start here.
Yeah.
Talk to me about what makes you happy.
Wow, that's a deep question, Clayton. I thought I was going to get questions about my sport and my event, and here we go. What makes me happy? I'm a very down to earth type of person. I like to be very humble. I like to treat people with the same respect that I like to be treated. And whether that's the janitor or the cooks or whatever it is, I am very firm on treating people with respect. For me, what makes me happy is essentially doing what I love to do. And I know that sounds very cliche, but I've been in Paralympic sport since more than half of my life. And I was doing the numbers the other day, and to me, I went to my first World Championships when I was 13, and I'm 32 now. So that's 21 years, so to speak. And being involved in Paralympic sport to me has been a dream because at the end of the day, I get to work out, I get to train, I get to see the improvements on a weekly, monthly basis. But for me, I just love the journey. There's something about being able to be in a position to train and have a goal that's a long-term goal. I don't like to have short goals. I don't like to have easy goals. I like to have goals that are 5-10 years down the road that seem very challenging to overcome. And to me, it's the daily grind that I love. And so, I'm a pretty quiet.
Most people hate the grind. Most people, even most athletes, when you talk to them, it's like, I'm doing the grind because I want to achieve my goals, but it's hard to get. The grind sucks. Like people aren't loving the grind the way you do. So you really
everybody wants to be a Paralympian, but no one wants to do the work. For me, I've always been taught at a young age that hard work pays off. There is no shortcuts in sport, and I think that's one of the things that I love about sport is that you have full control over your destiny, over the results. Whether you go hard on a daily basis or you train smart, to me, it's the day in and day out process that I just wake up loving and enjoying and wanting more. Of course the people around me, I've had a lot of supporters from day one. Bob Babbitt and everybody at the Challenge Athletes Foundation. Everybody who, I grew up in the sport of triathlon, and to grow up in the sport of triathlon, it's a special thing because, most kids, they grow up on football or baseball or soccer. And for me to grow up in such an odd sport, a multi-sport, has really, I think has really made me, who I am today. You could probably never make me upset or mad. You probably will never see me, throw a fit or let my emotions get the best of me. But it's with that. It's with growing up with some of the best athletes in the world, and in my opinion, triathletes are the best. I mean, you can't compare it to someone who, throws down a less than 8-hour Ironman, and some of these professional athletes, and to be around them, to grow up with them has been, an amazing experience. And, I think it's definitely made me who I am. And it's really made me take control of my own life as well. It's made me be the decision maker on what I'm going to focus on and what I'm going to do. And I think that brings happiness to me, being able to be in control, be the driver of your own movie is there's nothing better than that. So I think in short, that's what makes me happy.
So so I just did Ezra for our first show, right? So you're really the second show we're doing.
Yeah.
And when you listen to Ezra talk, I mean, you guys actually sound similar because he loves sports so much it like pains him, and he likes the grind. Like he comes back from a workout, he's just been doing beach workouts because like literally everything's closed right now in LA.
Yeah.
And we're recording in late December for those that are listening to 2020, and things aren't good out there. And so he's going to the beach, and they're brutal workouts, right? Sand is so brutal, especially for an amp, where you really
it's the worst. Yeah.
And, but he loves it. He comes back just so beat up and like whatever, and he loves it. So the one thing that I'll throw out there about you, which is so cool, and you said it a little bit at the beginning, of just like treating everyone right equally with respect, which I think is so timely in the with current environment where not everyone feels like they're respected. Sure. Whether people with disabilities or African Americans or immigrants, or you've got a lot of people out there that aren't feeling that, and you definitely bring that. I love that. But what I want to also have people understand is, and we'll hopefully be able to splice in some videos to the video version of this, of you, so people can see, kind of who you are with your sort of physicality, but you bring a little swag,
Absolutely.
You walk with your chest out, your chin's up, you bring a real presence, and it's not like an arrogance thing. It's just a confidence. And like, before I give you the next soul searching question, just like where is it being an athlete, or what is the nugget that brings that Rudy when you walk into a room, or you walk? I mean, I remember you walking into the Angel City Games that first year. Like, I remember your presence. I remember your presence when you were 16 when we met you. You've always had the presence. Where did that come from?
I think it comes from my dad. My dad grew up in Mexico. My dad is from Mexico, so Garcia, that's my last name. And my dad, grew up on very modest means. And when I was growing up, I grew up in a trailer park. I never had my own bed until I was, 13 or 14 years old. My dad was a full-time cook at a truck stop, and my mom took care of us 5 kids. I think it comes from my dad always reminded me to remember where you come from, to always remember to be humble, but also be very respectful. And I think that that's something that I try to carry with me any and everywhere.
Yeah, I love it. And where does that confidence, you think, come from? Is it
I think the confidence comes from sport. Sports has given me the confidence to fully understand my abilities, not my disabilities, but my abilities. Has really given me, a outlook on life that is whether it's there's no can't. There's always a way. And I think that's something that I learned from sport, is that if you can't figure it out the first time, then try it again a different way and a different way until you can figure it out. I think that sports is that's what brought to me the confidence.
Because I see Ezra's got a little bit of that too. He's similar approach to humanity, that we're all created equal and we should all be given that respect. But he's, he brings it.
That swag. You gotta have a little swag. You gotta let the people know that you know what you're doing. You're not here to play games. So.
Right. All right. Second soul searching question.
Yes.
What stresses you out? Like, what triggers you?
What stresses me out? What triggers me? When people are disrespectful to other people, they put them down for absolutely no reason. People who are inconsiderate, who don't think about the people who are around them. Yep. That to me sometimes ticks me off. And then the last thing I would say is training partners who don't work hard. I have no patience for them. Get out of my pool. I don't want to see your face. Get out of here. Come back tomorrow. You better come with 100%. I think those little things there are my ticks, so to speak. But I will never react on them, so don't worry.
I can see, the beginnings of the Rudy Garcia Tolson swim academy or something there, because it sounds like something the coach would say. You're not giving 100%. Get out of my pool.
Get out of the pool. Absolutely. It's a philosophy. I mean, you gotta, every time you have an opportunity to have a workout, you have to give your 110%. Don't come sandbagging it, because negativity is very contagious, especially in a training situation.
Yeah. Every situation, though. I mean, in training, there's a lot on the line, right?
Yes.
But yeah, no, I think that's a great observation. Okay, super cool. I didn't really know that was what you were going to say coming about your stressors, but I love. All right, so I know you've not had a super long life. Hopefully, you live to be 100. But in your 31 years on the planet, do you have any regrets?
Do I have any regrets? I have absolutely no regrets. I am very happy with the decisions I've made. I think maybe my only regret is not going for 3 sports in Rio. There was a time there where I was thinking, I came back from London, I did track and field and swimming. And then the year after that, in 2013, I actually medaled in the long jump at World Championships. And so I was on a path of trying to go for 2 or 3 sports in Rio. Yeah. But for some reason, maybe someone talked me down, or someone's, just made me realize that I was in my later part of my career, and I should potentially just focus on my one sport, and that's what I did. Maybe I should have done more. Maybe in 2008 I should have done track and field and swimming. I think that if any athletes are out there right now and you're thinking about a Paralympic, future, it's always good to focus on one sport. But if you have the ability to crush it in multiple sports, go and do it. Go do it now, because you're never going to have the opportunity again. I'm never going to be 20 years old anymore. I'm never going to be, getting ready for my second or my first Paralympic Games. So, while it's hot, get it while it's hot.
Wow. I love that. And I have to have Ezra listen to this podcast. So he's doing 3 events. He's got the 100-meter, the high jump, and the long jump. And, he loves the high jump.
Yeah. He's good at it too.
For World Championships, the kid didn't even practice the long jump and train for the 100. Like, he just rolls into the World Championships without training for 2 of his 3 events, basically.
Swag.
Super funny, right? Still makes the finals, right? In both the long jump and the 100-meter. But there is pressure, and I can see, right? Back when you were kind of like juggling it, the coaches in one sport don't want to see you in another sport.
No, absolutely not.
And even within track and field, which is a really interesting sport because there's so many events.
Yeah.
There's pressure to sort of pare it down and be really laser focused. But I kind of agree with your philosophy, like, if you can pull it off. And
if you can pull it off.
The thing we're stressing about for Ez is the events are like back to back. So like you don't have any recovery days. So trying to like get your head in the game, right, and figure out how do you recover quickly. It's hard, but it's not impossible.
It's not impossible. Listen, if Michael Phelps can go to Beijing and win 8 gold medals, but not only win 8 gold medals, but he had to make it to the finals. So he had to swim prelims and semi-prelims. So that means that's 24 races that the gentleman did in a matter of 10 days or so. So if Phelps can win 8 gold medals, and somebody else can go out and win 3 gold medals in 3 different sports. It's only a matter of time.
Over whatever, 3 or 4 days.
Sure, absolutely.
All right, I got that. Noted. All right, so my last soul searching question, and then we'll go into some more fun details. But what do you think is your life purpose?
What is my life purpose? My life purpose has been to be a role model, to be an example for people who are struggling, to be an example for kids who have a physical disability, to be an example for anybody who has a challenge in life. I want them to look at me, to look at people who are like me, my friends and my teammates, and to think that there's nothing that they can't accomplish or they can't do in life. But that does not mean there won't be hard times in life, because as we all know, life is full of its challenges. We don't even need to throw in the legs or arms or anything. Without any of that, it's already hard. And I think I want people to realize that they can still accomplish what they want. The power is within them. It's in their minds. It's in their hearts. I always say a brave heart is a powerful weapon, and I still say that because to me, it's very important for somebody who believes in themselves. There's nothing more powerful. And that really comes from the heart. You have to be brave, especially in today's world, to hear all the negativity that is out there, to overcome the personal obstacles that we all grow through. At the end of the day, we have to keep moving forward and keep motivating and inspiring everybody, because the world needs inspiration right now. The world needs to be inspired. And what better way than Angel City Games, than Paralympic Games, and the Challenge Athletes Foundation. So I think that's what my life purpose is. Growing up, I had a lot of challenges, primarily being comfortable with who I was. I went through when I was growing up, when I went through high school. I used to wear pants every day. I used to wear a hoodie. I didn't socialize too much.
In high school, you did?
In high school. See, people don't know that, because I had two sides of me. I had the side of me that was going on Oprah with Robin Williams and Danny Glover. And then the other side of me, which was more like, I just want to fit in. Like, I don't want to be known as that boy with no legs. And throughout my whole life, that's all how I've been known. And that was very hard for me to accept. But I think that, I know Ezra has experienced this as well, but ever since I was, 5 or 6 years old, ever since I had my legs amputated, I've had strangers come up to me and tell me that I've inspired them, that I've motivated them. Some people will come up to me crying and say that I've changed their life. And, as a young kid, when you're young, you can't process that. It's hard to understand why they are doing that. I used to think that people would do that to me because they wanted me to feel good about myself, because they thought that I was depressed because of my legs. But, I think it goes more deeper into that, because, I could have easily just said, I don't want to be on TV. I don't want to be an ambassador. I don't want to be a role model. But after having people telling me that I've inspired them and motivated them for over 20 years, it's hard to ignore that now. And now I'm very confident in saying that, yes, I can be a role model for these young kids. I can be an example for these young kids, because I never had that. There's nobody out there for me growing up who was also a double amputee, who was doing sports, who was traveling the world. And so now I'm in a position that I can be that. So, it's very humbling. I didn't grow up asking to be in this position. It just kind of was set upon me. And, I'm always thinking on how I can improve, reaching more people and getting more kids to be inspired, because, when you have the power to motivate and inspire you, it humbles you. You want to do more for people around you, because, it's really limitless. There's no limit on how much you can help somebody. So,
yeah. All right, man, you just brought so many good things up. So I'm curious about sort of two things that happened to you and when they happened and whether they're connected. So you were so clear on your purpose. And I ask that question all the time of people.
Yeah.
And it freaks people out. People
Sure.
are so uncomfortable, right? Because they feel like maybe they haven't even been looking for purpose, or they're way off of their purpose, or they have no clue, like whatever. People are in their heads about purpose. And I don't think we all have to take it that seriously, but I do think it's worth paying attention to. So you were so crystal clear on that. But at the same time, you told me about, your lack of self-acceptance. And so I want to know, when do you think, to the best of your ability to remember, when do you think you understood that your purpose? And when did you start to accept yourself? And are they connected and related, or did they sort of pop at different times? Like, because this is why we do what we do, right? With Angel City, this is why we do. Because if you can get people to accept themselves, then they can start to build self-confidence from there. You can't even think about confidence if you don't even, right? You're not owning who you are, right?
Absolutely.
And then what I like to say is, then you can start to dream.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you got a little confidence, you can start to dream. Well, what could be next, right? And then you just go from there. Look at you pushing 5 times Paralympic Games. So when, right? When did you figure your purpose out? And when did you start to accept yourself?
Absolutely. I think my purpose and my acceptance of myself came around the same time, and that was when I was in my mid-20s. I did 2 Paralympics already. I finished my Ironman, and I specifically don't remember the moment, but it might have been sometime when I went to my next San Diego Triathlon Challenge, and for me. The San Diego Triathlon Challenge is a very special event for me, because it's literally a family reunion, but it's also an opportunity for me to see all the kids out there who are now leading this goal and this dream. They're going down the path of what we did, and I think it had to have been around the San Diego Triathlon Challenge. And my first year at the San Diego Triathlon Challenge, I was the only kid. And then a few years later, Roderick Sewell came in.
How old were you?
I went to my first San Diego Triathlon Challenge when I was 8 years old. I did the 1.2 mile swim when I was 9 years old. And then, of course, every other year after that. But for me, it had to have been in 2010 or 2011, going back to the San Diego Triathlon Challenge, and to see 50 or 100 little kids out there just running around, just living life, not knowing that they have a disability. They don't know. They just think that this is my special leg, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to go play with everybody else. I think being able to see that, and then to see some of my mentors and some of the people who I've known my whole life, and just really kind of full circle made me realize that I can't be selfish. I can't be sitting here thinking, I don't like myself because I don't have my legs, or because maybe my hands are a little scarred up, or to me that's selfish. I can't let this gift that has been given to me go to waste because of my selfishness, and that's when I realized that it was very important for me to continue to do sport, to continue to be involved in the adaptive sports movement, because there's kids out there still today who don't know what the opportunities are. They are being told still today that they can't do something because of their disability.
Yep.
And to me, that just makes me cringe. Like we are in 2020, guys, and there's still people out there who think that disability is a negative thing. And here we are, Angel City Games, Angel City Sports, and we're showing the world that disability is amazing. There's so much positivity in disability and sports that we need to continue to do what we're doing, because we're changing lives. And there's nothing greater than that. I mean, yeah, the money's cool, the medals are fun, the records are nice, but being able to motivate and inspire tops it all. Nothing better.
I love that. And you better be careful. I'm going to ask you to be on our board or something. What's interesting too, because I talk about, Angel City a lot, which is we're just getting started.
Yeah.
Because, if you look at the numbers, 15% of the population in the United States has a physical disability.
It's a lot.
Right? And it might even be low, because not everybody even reports disabilities. Right?
Sure.
So just Southern Cal, right? There's about 20 million people more, but within a 2-hour drive. So that means there's 3 million people living with physical disabilities that are a couple hours away from coming to the Angel City Games. So they wouldn't even get a hotel, right? So we're just barely starting, man.
Scratching the surface.
We got so much work to do, and we'll get there together. But no, that was beautiful. I want to back up, man. You said a couple things about your childhood, and I know that as we start to pump these shows out, we're going to attract parents.
Yes.
We are going to find parents.
Absolutely.
And I'm not saying they're the only target, right? Because so many people acquire disability later in life. So I'm not discounting that journey at all. But for a congenital, for a kid that had to make some crazy decisions, I want you to walk us through your childhood. Obviously, you mentioned you grew up in a mobile home and didn't even have your own bed for most of your childhood. Talk us through the childhood. What did it do to form your character? What were those challenges in those early days, and how did you get through them? And we've talked a little bit about your journey in disability, which sounds like we can give the Challenged Athletes Foundation a lot of the credit for helping you own your disability journey. But you've got this whole other journey of just growing up in
absolutely
lack of means.
Right? Absolutely. I think my first journey was to be a kid. That's all I wanted to do. I just wanted to be like my brothers and sisters. And, when I grew up, when I was born, right away, my doctors suggested to my parents that they amputate my legs through the knee.
Yep.
And my parents just refused to let them do that because they didn't want me to come back later in my life and have me question that decision. Like, why did you cut my legs off?
What were you born with? What was
so it was a rare condition called Terrigion Syndrome, and essentially I had a cleft lip and palate. I had webbed fingers, and then my legs were webbed at the knee. So I was never fully able to stretch my leg out and stand on my own 2 feet. They were always bent, almost like as if you're sitting on a chair. And under my knee, I had a big flap of skin there. So they couldn't just cut that skin because the main artery ran through there. So my legs were essentially just bent. And
you were in a crouched position.
In a crouched position, absolutely. Yep, in a crouched position. So
you could kind of stand up.
I could stand up with a walker. I used to use a walker to get around. Most of the time I was on the floor on my hands crawling around. But the legs were the biggest challenge. My hands were corrected. My 3 middle fingers on both sides were webbed together, and they separated those. And my hands are good, scarred up, but they're good. And then my legs were still the biggest challenge. And so my parents told the doctors, let's try the options. What can we do to try to save them? Yeah. And really, that's when that was when I was born. And that continued for 5 years. I went through more than 15 operations from when I was born till I was 5 years old. And all those operations were geared. Huh?
Do you remember any of those? You remember?
I do. I mostly remember the hospital. I remember just being in my hospital bed. I remember a few memories of some of my hospital bed mates who were on the other side of the curtain. Some of them were cancer patients. Some of them were accidents, so missing a limb or two. And it was cool to connect with those kids. And one thing I remember most about the hospital was on certain days, a lady would come and pick me up in a wagon and take me around the hospital for like a walk. And to me, that was like my freedom. That was like something that I look forward to, was just being able to get out of the bed, get in this little stroller, and to go for a walk. And that was my freedom as a young kid. And when I talk about telling people that the ultimate decision to have my legs amputated, what really came from me. Some people have a hard time understanding that a 5-year-old kid can make a decision like that. But one thing that people don't fully understand sometimes is that while most 4 or 5-year-old kids are thinking about their toys and the cereal that they want, I was thinking about my legs, and I had big scars with stitches still in them, and IVs in my arms, and just bandages, and just doctors and operating rooms. That was my childhood. And when you experience enough surgeries, when you are in a situation where they take you from your room to the surgery room, it can be very traumatic, and especially for a kid. I can still remember the smell of the mask that they put on me to make me go to sleep. Like if I'm somewhere out in public and I smell that, yes,
bubble gum or something.
If I smell that, like I just instantly get like cringy, because I just remember that moment when the doctor in full white would just put the mask on me, and then I would be fighting it, and then I would go to sleep, and then the next thing I remember, I was waking up in my hospital bedroom. But
the surgeries you had, the hand and maybe a cleft palate surgery, but then also were they trying to get your legs to function better?
Majority of them were for my legs. And I remember we did the doctors did this one experimental procedure on my legs, and it was from Russia, and it was literally a halo. I know they use halos to lengthen bone nowadays, but for me, they used a halo on both of my legs. I had a halo that went from my thigh all the way down to my ankle. And the idea of this was that my mom would turn a little screw right where the knee joint is a few millimeters a day. And over a course of 6 months, it would slowly stretch out my leg. And that was the most painfulest thing I've ever experienced, because, when my mom turned the little lever to straighten the leg out, it wouldn't hurt right then, but a few hours later, it was like excruciating pain. And that was for 6 months at a time. And, I had metal rods going into my legs. I probably had about 15 metal rods going into my leg, all the way into my bone, from my thigh down to my ankle. And that was probably the most disabled I've ever felt, because I was not able to go outside. I could barely move. This metal cage probably weighed about 15 pounds, and I probably weighed like 40. So it was just, it was one of those situations when I think I was about 4 years old, that I think after experiencing that, after waking up and looking down at your legs and seeing metal rods going into your body as a 4-year-old, you start to realize, what, this is not fun. Like, I don't want this anymore. And when you hear the doctors talking, and you start to realize that, what, if they just remove this part, then I can get out of here. I can go home and I can ride my skateboard, whatever. I just wanted to be a kid. And I remember finally we made that decision to have my legs amputated. I think before that morning when I woke up to go to the hospital, I think I wrote some notes on my foot, like a goodbye note, because it was going to be the last time I was going to see my real feet. And then I remember waking up in the hospital and, having bandages all over my legs. But the one thing I remember was my legs felt so light, because, I didn't have anything else below the knee. It just felt like I had, two really light stumps, so to speak. And then finally, after a few weeks, they sent me home, and they told me not to run around on the little cast that they put on my legs. And I remember the first week I made a hole in the cast. and I had to go back to the doctor to get a new cast made. And I had stitches. I probably had 40 stitches on behind both of my legs that needed to heal. And I just wanted to get out. I just wanted to go, and that, to me, that's what I remember most about my childhood. And then the next journey, of course, was getting my first pair of legs and learning how to maneuver the world with those, and not necessarily learning how to maneuver the physical world, but it was more of the challenge of how to maneuver around kindergartners and kids in elementary. That was the first step that I had to go towards next after having my legs amputated. So
I got a million questions about life on 2 prosthetic legs, because I got a son that's got 1, and it's like, it's tricky enough. So like I want to get there in a second, because I think it's really powerful for people to understand how complicated it is to be a double above knee amputee.
Yeah.
Don't think people appreciate this. And athletes like you and Ezra make it look so easy, just to
make it look easy,
swag around. It's like, no, this is not easy. But I want to back up for a second, because you said something so powerful. And the fact that you were 5 years old, making a decision, maybe even 4, making a decision to amputate your own legs, owning it, and then kind of starting your life, almost like a refresh, right? And one thing that I've thought about a lot over the years is our kids, right? I call them our kids, but the kids in our community, congenitals, or just the early injuries or whatever, right? That just live the life.
Yeah.
They grow up fast. They have a maturity, they have a wisdom, they have a perspective. And I like to also think I could sell that to like an employer, because
Absolutely.
you got a kid with a disability that's, gotten through college and, they're 21, 22 years old. They are really evolved human beings.
You'll be very resilient.
Right? I mean, they've been through crazy times, right?
Absolutely.
And I mean, listen, all the journeys are different, right? Your journey is different than Ezra's, but there's a common thread, right, across those. So I just think that's amazing. And just to clarify, because I think this is an incredible part of your story, which is you make that decision at whatever, you're almost 5, around 5. You had those 15 surgeries before that.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It wasn't 15 surgeries over the course of your life. It's 15 surgeries by the time you're 5.
Yes, absolutely.
You can amputate. And so I remember, because Ezra had 2 surgeries. He had one big surgery and then a smaller surgery to try to get the hand working better once we transplanted the toe to his hand. And I remember also we looked into leg lengthening, right, as a solution. It was never really, because he didn't have a knee, so that didn't really pan out. But I remember thinking a lot, because there is literature about children that grow up sick, children that grow up in the hospital all the time.
Yeah.
It's a really hard journey, right? Because they're not getting to be kids. They're always the sick one. They're always the one that's in the hospital.
Yeah.
It starts to affect their mental well-being. And so I guess I'm looking at you thinking your sort of proactive decision to sort of get out of that world.
Yeah.
Almost was like a reset for you. And it's really a beautiful, right? It's really a beautiful.
Absolutely. It was definitely a reset. The way I explain it to people is that, when I was born with chains, and the chains were holding me down. I was not able to get up. I was not able to be a kid. And when the doctors were finally able to amputate my legs, they removed those chains and I was free. And that's literally how it felt on every level. And I can also honestly say, Clayton, when I was in the hospital going through these operations, I was, as a kid, just very depressed. I mean, I look at some of the photos of me laying in a hospital bed, and I just look like lifeless. I just look like there's nothing going on. Like I'm just like here, and it as a kid, it's not an easy thing to overcome. And I can definitely thank my family for being very supportive to me, as I was in the hospital. And I can only imagine my brothers and sisters. My mom, I became her priority for a time being, and so I can only imagine how that was for my brothers and sisters, for me getting all the attention, and then them, not so much being able to be with mom and dad all the time. So definitely a different dynamic.
I'd like to take a quick break to show you how you can get involved as a volunteer with Angel City Sports.
Are you interested in supporting Angel City Sports? We're seeking volunteers to help organize clinics and events, as well as support our athlete outreach efforts, marketing and media, and even fundraising and development. All skill sets and backgrounds are welcome in support of our mission to provide free adaptive sport opportunities for children, adults, and veterans with physical disabilities or visual impairments. For our younger athletes, we welcome you to join the Angel City Youth Leadership Council. Middle and high school age students are eligible to join the Youth Leadership Council, where you will learn about the disabled community by working side by side with our athletes and acquire important skills such as teamwork, leadership, philanthropy, and event management. To sign up for our volunteer newsletter and stay up to date on all upcoming opportunities, visit angelcitysports.org.
Let's talk about how you felt growing up and like what did you see and hear coming from society, from how are people treating you, kind of pre-amputation? What do you remember being on a walker? Because walker's like, you're drawing a lot of attention to yourself.
Oh, of course.
Once you got your legs rolling, I want to hear a little bit about just, how the legs work, and being a double amp is double above knee amp, by the way, tricky. And like, what was that, right? What was the battle that you had to do with society, basically?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when I had my surgery to have my legs amputated, I was in kindergarten, and I went to first grade with my my prosthetic leg. So in kindergarten, I was in a wheelchair. First grade, I came walking, and I had these essentially these prosthetic legs that literally nobody has ever seen before. So as soon as I walk in on day one of first grade, it's like all eyes on me. All eyes, teachers, students, everybody, parents. It's everybody. And after a week or two, it kind of settles down, and people start to just accept it as that's Rudy. For me, when I was growing up around the same time in elementary school, I played outside every day, all day. My parents were like, get outside, get out of the house, go play with your friends. So majority of my childhood was outside, either playing tag, playing soccer, playing football, riding my skateboard.
Did you have like a cool little block or kind of area?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we had a good block. We had some good kids. All of my friends in my childhood, none of them spoke English. So I was the only white boy. I was the only white boy who didn't speak Spanish. But I figured it out. I would
speak any Spanish.
I did. It's crazy. My dad fluent Spanish. My mom fluent Spanish. All my brothers and sisters pretty fluent, except me. I think it was me being the baby of the family and just wanting to rebel. No, I don't want to learn that. No, I don't want to. And that's how, as a kid, I regret that.
Your friends on the street didn't.
Well, and you pick up the bad words really quick, especially when you have a bunch of friends who only speak Spanish. So I ended up getting along with them very well. They never treated me any different than anybody else, which means they would come over and knock me over to take the ball. They wouldn't play no special privileges with me.
So that's really interesting. Did you live in the same place with those same kids for
yes.
Your whole childhood?
Yes, I did. All those kids in my trailer park where I grew up at, and then also the kids I went to elementary school. We grew up in the same neighborhood, so it's like we all grew up together. And as a young kid, for me, the stares and the looks from people, it never bothered me one bit. Like I never really realized that people were looking at me because my legs were missing. Like I was literally oblivious to this. I was just being a kid.
At some point, you're like, oh, okay.
That's when I get to high school. That's when I get to middle school and high school, and I start to think about what the girls think of me. How I look in the mirror. That's when I feel like the challenges really came full speed. At least for the mental challenges for me, not necessarily the physical part, but that's when I started to get insecure and
that's so interesting. So you really have gone on this journey of like having
oblivious to anything with my legs.
Yeah, like oblivious, but also like you're being yourself, right?
Yeah, just being a kid.
And then you hit those sort of teen years that are brutal for everyone, but
yes,
really brutal. And then and then you get 20s, you kind of come back into that self-acceptance.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. But those teenage years for me were very hard. Like I can remember I used to be so self-conscious of my legs that I would be walking home from school, or I would be in the car going somewhere, and I'd pull up in the parking lot at a store, and I would see like a group of kids coming out, and I would actually wait till those kids got in their car and left before I got out of my car to go into the store, because I just didn't want to experience them laughing at me or looking at me or saying, "Oh shit, look at the boy with no legs," like hush, hush.
And this is really interesting. So, and you feel like this did continue through high school, right?
Absolutely.
So you're a kid that's doing these amazing triathlons, and you're an ambassador, and you go to the Paralympics as a 16-year-old. So I'm assuming that's is that between 10th and 11th grade, basically?
Yes.
So you're so accomplished, right? And it just shows how hard this journey is, right? Because you were you had swag, you were confident in your athletic ability, but the social side of living with disability it was
hard. It was hard.
Brutal. So interesting. I mean, listen, I like to say, like an organization like Angel City or Challenge Athletes, where we're aggregating the athletes, right? Yeah. It's a place where we sort of recharge these kids to then go battle, right?
I can tell you, Clayton, there was just something that helped me whenever I would go to a CAF race or a Paralympic event, be around everybody else who was somewhat like me. There was something that just made me like forget about all that other crap that society kind of put on me. And for a weekend or for a few days, I was just there and I was just happy, and that lasted, if I was lucky, it lasted 2 weeks after the event. I would go to school and I just would be easy breezy, wouldn't care. But then that would slowly wear off. And then the more I was around able-bodied people, the more I felt different. It's very, very interesting how that works. The more I was around disabled people, the more I felt the same.
Yeah. So we've unpacked all the challenges, at least the big ones that you can think of. As a now 31-year-old looking back on them, can you share how are you able to see how they helped you? Are you able to see how they sort of positively, shaped who you are, and that they were an important part of your journey? Like can you look at them, and how do you look at them now?
Absolutely. I can look back at all the challenges, specifically dealing with having my legs amputated. The next challenge of being comfortable with who I am, and not to be insecure about my disability. To me, I look back at all those challenges, and then I look at where I'm at today and where the world is today, especially with the pandemic that has taken over the world. And, to me, when the pandemic first started back in March, I was working and living in New York City. I had a great job with the New York Roadrunners. I was working with kids with disabilities. I was doing a lot of coaching, private coaching. I was in New York City living that life. And when the pandemic hit, it kind of made me realize that I want to get back to what I love, and that is sports and training. And as we realized that with sports and training, we need facilities. And with the pandemic, everything is closed down. And, I think that with having everything closed down, and then saying to myself and people around me that I want to go for number 5 of the Paralympics, I don't look at it as like, man, how am I going to get this done? I look at it as a fun challenge, as an opportunity to do something that might seem not possible. And I find joy in going for these journeys. To me, I love being in a situation where there seems like there's no hope, because I create the hope. And
is that what you're telling yourself about the team right now? Like,
I mean, no, with the pandemic and everything, for a lot of people, they may feel hopeless right now. They can't train with their team. They can't train with their training buddies. They can't do what they're used to doing. And with the pandemic, it really made us figure out different ways to do things. And I think from my whole life, I've always had to figure out ways to do things differently. And so when the pandemic hit, to me, obviously safety is safety for the people around me is a number one priority. But I never looked at it as like, man, there's no way. To me, I was like, okay, the pools aren't open. I'm going to go to the ocean. If I can't go to the ocean, I'm going to go to the lake. If I can't go to the lake, then I'm going to buy a VASA trainer and I'm going to train just my own. Like there's always a way. And I think that's something that to me, I find is beautiful that I've been able to embrace is that there's never a can't. And I know people say that a lot, but to me, I find that when there is a can't, I want to prove that there is a can't, and that to me is something that I've learned through just over the trials and tribulations of the challenges that I've had. Another thing that I've learned to do and just to be is just to be positive. When you're a 5-year-old kid in the hospital and you just want to go outside and play, you start to embrace the good things in life. You don't no longer see the negativity. You only embrace the positivity, and and that's how I try to live my life on a daily basis. If I'm having a bad day, I'm never going to show it to anybody else. I'm going to put on a smile, and I'm going to make sure that I'm nothing but positivity, because I've experienced what it's like to be negative. I've experienced what it's like to live negatively, and I don't want that. And that's something that I've learned through the challenges. So,
I mean, what you just said is so powerful, right? So because of your disability, right, you're more resilient, pandemic, no pandemic, tell me I can't do something, whatever, I got it. I'm going to I'm going to find a way. And then also that you've really, and it sounds like from an early age, trained yourself to think positively, which, by the way, is something that I'm still working on with myself. These are not easy things to sort of get your head around at any point in your life. And so people sort of get kind of cheeky about this, like your disability is your superpower and all this stuff like that. And I don't know that that's a superpower necessarily, but it has forged, right, character through these sometimes brutal experiences,
resilience,
right? And mostly I think our community is a little wiser, a little more mature, a little more resilient, a little more creative, right? And you start to add up some of these characteristics. Pretty interesting, pretty compelling.
There's some good ones there. I think through the hard times come some good positives. And if you choose to look at it a different way, then so be it. But I'm going to choose to look at it my way, which is the positive way.
Well, and you said it earlier, the hard times come.
Absolutely. I mean,
they're coming for all of us.
Clayton, there are days where I don't want to put my legs on. You better believe I have a sore on my leg. I have a pressure sore somewhere, and I go to put my aligners on. I go to put my legs into my legs. I stand up, and my lower back is killing me. My leg is hurt. There's so many times when life tries to take us down a little bit. Not down, but it just gives us that extra thing to overcome on a daily basis. But what's the other option we have? To give up? Nah, we're not giving up, Clayton.
I want to sort of now back into your Paralympic journey, because I can't finish this show without really giving people an appreciation for the journey. And so you've given us, some little tidbits, especially about some of the earlier, the early days, kind of getting into swimming, and you're already a triathlete from your young days.
Yeah.
But walk us through kind of how did you find adaptive sports? Probably challenge athletes was had a pretty important role in there. And then when did you sort of take swimming seriously, right, and realize, okay, I could make the team, and this could be a thing?
Absolutely.
you're so young. I mean, you're like Ezra, right? I mean, he's like in junior high going, I'm going to go to Tokyo,
Yeah. No, slow down now. For me, when I first started swimming, it was the first sport that I got into after my amputation. So swimming,
like a local YMCA or like whatever.
I started at a local YMCA. I started taking swim lessons. I learned how to swim freestyle. And then after 3 months, my instructor told me to go join a swim team. So Southern California, there's plenty of those.
You're little though. You're like 5 or
yeah, but I wanted to do more. I wanted to swim more. And I tell you, the reason why I think swimming was so awesome at a young age was because my prosthetic legs at that time were very heavy. They hurt and they broke all the time. So for me to be able to take my legs off and jump into the pool was like, yo, I don't have to wear my legs. Awesome. Right. I think that's one of the main reasons why I gravitated towards swimming. But when I joined my first swim team, I believe I was 7 years old. I remember it pretty vividly. I started swimming 30 minutes a day, and then after each week, I go like an hour, and then I started swimming an hour and a half a day with this club team, and they all kind of knew who I was, and the thing that I heard the most was, "Oh, it's the boy with no legs," and that was kind of the title that they gave me, and for some reason that just kind of ticked me off a little bit. Like I just didn't want to be known as that. And I think they called me that because in practice I was always last. I was the slowest. And I think that was my initial motivation to set my first goal. And my first goal was to beat a kid with legs. That's all I wanted to do. I just wanted to go to the next swim meet, and I wanted to not finish last.
All right.
So used to finishing last. Oh, and then when I get out of the pool, when I was last, everybody would say, "Oh, you did such a good job!" Like, "Oh, someone made the pity clap," and that just like ticked me off even more.
Do you remember the first time you beat a kid with no legs?
Oh yeah, I remember it was the 25 freestyle. It was in Rialto, California. I swam the 25 freestyle. I touched the wall. I look up and I see the kid next to me touches the wall right after me. And when he touches the wall, he actually looks over at me, and then he looks up at his friends and says, "Man, the kid with no legs beat me." And I hear that. I'm in the water. I hear that, and I just fill up with joy. Like, yeah, you bet your butt I did. And to me, that was like my first taste of competition. That was like my first taste of not coming last. Yeah. And I loved it. I was like, man, I want to do more of this. And at that same time, when I was 8 years old, that's when I set my next goal, and that was to go to the 2004 Paralympic Games. I actually have newspaper clippings from back in 1997-98 that say Rudy's goal is to go to the 2004 Paralympic Games.
But how did you even know what the Paralympics were?
Well, at that time, my parents were my prosthetist, Michael Davidson, out in Loma Linda. He gave me a bunch of me and my parents a bunch of material. I believe the first magazine that I remember was Blaze Sports. I believe it was a Blaze Sports magazine, and it had some people running in the 1996 Atlanta Paralympic Games, and it had some people swimming in it too. So I remember looking at this and being like, "Hey, that guy's got one leg, guy's got no legs." And then to hear my parents say, like, these guys are like the best of the best. And I remember they were all wearing like different country shirts and swim caps. And for some reason I was like, "Oh, that sounds pretty damn cool. Like I want a piece of that." That kind of sounds like something that I could do. And of course that was when I was 8. My first world championships was when I was 13, in 2002, Argentina, Mar del Plata. I went for swimming. I think I got 7th place in my main event. But I was 13, so I was just there to like enjoy the moment and like, be the young kid on the team. And then 2 years later, for my first Paralympic Games, I was 15. I turned 16 at the games, but for me, Athens was somewhat of I was considered a wild card. So for trials in Athens, my main event was the 200 individual medley, and in the finals of my main event, I actually got disqualified. So at that moment, when I got disqualified, I thought my Paralympic dreams were over. I was going to have to wait 4 years until Beijing. But for some reason, they did the count of the team, and I think they had 2 or 3 extra slots, which were called wild card slots for athletes who were, ranked like 10 through 15th or something, who maybe had a chance to make finals, but really had no chance to win a medal. And I got one of those slots, and I remember, going to the announcement of the team, and they called my name, and I was pretty jazzed, pretty excited. But I wasn't like over the moon, because I realized that I was going to be in a position to I was going to be at the race, with all the big dogs. I was a little boy, and I was going to be with all the big dogs, and that's pretty humbling. And so I remember, on day one of the Paralympics in Athens, was my main event, the 200 IM. It was like the first event of the morning. So it was like right out the bat. I didn't go to opening ceremonies for Athens. I watched it on TV. And then in Athens, on that prelim in the morning of my morning swim, I ended up going about 10 seconds faster than I've ever gone in my main event. And when I touch the wall, I look at the wall, I turn around, I look at the scoreboard, and it has my name, USA, and then it has my time, 2:42:20. And then next to that, it had WR. And whoa. I was thinking to myself, like, that's got to be a glitch. Like, what do you mean? Like, that's not my time. And I got out of the water, and the next heat came by, and the next person who was in that heat was Erin Popovich, who was a multiple-time gold medalist in swimming. And she gave me a hug and congratulated me. And I was asking her, like, is this real? Like, is this like a dream, or is this real? And after realizing that it was a real deal, I still stayed humble, because I realized that I had to come back for finals and swim my race again to win the medal.
Do you remember that race?
Oh yeah.
Remember how you felt, and is there anything about it that like was different?
Actually, Clay, and I only remember the start of jumping off the blocks, and then I remember the finish. During the race, I have no recollection. I was swimming from in here, and so I was swimming from in my heart, and that's what they say. But I just swam my race.
It wasn't like you had this out-of-body experience that you had a sense that you were going to crush your own PR.
No, I was just doing what I trained to do. That was it.
So what do you attribute so like, because I have a theory that I've, right, and you've watched it too, but watching Ezra, right, kind of climb, like some of it is just getting bigger and stronger and just growing up, right? Like there's those years where you benefit from just the body's natural development, even if you don't have all the technique dialed in.
Yeah.
Like, what was it? What do you think it was? Like, it's so fascinating.
I think to me, it was just being in the moment and being in the pool with thousands of people cheering and watching. It was a moment where athletes have the opportunity to step up or not. And things came together that day for me, and I was able to step up and use the environment to my benefit. And I mean, I tell you, Clayton, I was so nervous. I don't tell people this, but I actually peed before I got on the blocks. I peed on the floor right there behind my block. That's how nervous I was. I was like, I can't. Huh?
I can believe it.
Yeah, I mean, I was beyond. Like, I can't explain how nervous I was going into the race, because sometimes people don't realize Olympic and Paralympic athletes, they train their whole life for a race that's 30 seconds, that's 1 minute or 2 minutes. Yeah. There's just so much that can go on in those 2 minutes, and to train for that, it really gave me the extra little push to rise above and come back for that night and win the gold medal. And to me, that was my biggest, like, my coolest achievement was winning my first gold medal, because, this was something that I planned for 8 years in the making. And during those 8 years, that's when I went through middle school and I was in high school.
Yeah, those were some of your hard years. Yeah.
Yeah, those hard times. And to me, that really showed me that if I set goals in my life down the road, I can do it. And that was a very pivotal moment for me.
That happens at 16, right? Like, who's going to really like scare you into not performing, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. From then on, I went through, from 2006 to 2008 to 2012, I went through like almost 10 years of somewhat being undefeated in my main events. And it wasn't until I got to London in 2012 where in the finals, I got defeated by like that much. I ended up taking the silver medal. But, that feeling of being able to conquer and accomplish what you set out to do, to harness the energy around you and to rise up to the occasion, that's the difference between gold and fourth place.
Right. That's amazing. Amazing. And I'm just so honored that I knew you at least like the next year is when we got.
You did. Yes.
You're still the skinny little, teenager.
Yep.
So you've talked a little bit about the comeback, but give us a little more on that. So you've been retired for a few years-ish, right?
Yeah.
After Rio. I remember, running into you at the swim event in Rio in the athletes section that I had sort of snuck into.
Yeah.
I had a pass, but whatever.
Yeah, sure.
But like, talk to me about that process of accepting this new reality that, hey, I'm gonna hang up the goggles, kind of go this other route. And then you talked a little bit about it, but and then making the decision to come back as a 31-year-old. Swimming's kind of a young person's sport, although some have defied, right?
Sure.
Some have sort of, fought against father time, but what's going on with the comeback?
Absolutely. Being done with Rio in 2016 and having a pretty successful games of PRing in my main events and getting a medal in my main event, I felt like I accomplished a lot, and I felt like I was, ready to do something different. Retirement is such a strong word. I never, considered it a retirement. I just figured I was going to do something a little different. And I actually was planning on going for triathlon in 2020. I was planning on training for para-triathlon, but in 2018, we found out that my classification was not going to make the medal count for Tokyo. So in 2018, I figured maybe I can go back to swimming. And while I was living and working in New York City, I actually attempted to start to train a little bit. And this was training by myself, and it just wasn't going nowhere. Mentally, I didn't want to be in the water. Physically, I didn't want to be in the water, and I was okay with it for the time being. And then 2020 came around in January, and they started to announce where the trials were going to be. They started to come out with the medal program for the Tokyo 2020 Games, and a part of me started to feel like I was going to be missing out. And I was actually really dreading for when the games were eventually going to come out, which was going to be in September of 2020. And I realized that I maybe made a mistake of not training again, because a part of me really missed being in a team environment with having a like-minded goal. To me, that was I loved that. That's what I wanted.
And you've grown up with it.
I grew up with it.
It's almost like it's like your childhood. So if we did not, this is so interesting. If we didn't have the pandemic and the Tokyo Paralympic Games were postponed by a year,
the games would be over right now, and I'd be sitting here like, man, Clayton, I wish I would have.
So you're saying in January of 2020, you were starting to feel a little regret.
I was starting to feel like I was missing out on something.
But could you have made the team for Tokyo if it happened this summer? Was that a possibility?
where I was physically, no, because I had no shape whatsoever. I was not working out. I had no base.
Right, you would have had to peak by late June for super trials.
For trials,
right? And made the team then.
It would have been a stretch, but I would have had to move from New York and go directly to where I needed to be, which would have been Colorado Springs. But that was just something that I felt like I didn't want to do. I was working with the New York Roadrunners. I was coaching a lot in New York City. I was making a lot of money, and I figured this is what comes next. This is life. I need to grow up. I need to get a real job. And after doing all that, I'm like, I kind of don't want to do this yet. I kind of want to go back and be an athlete again. I'm only 31. I'm not that old yet.
Right.
I'm just very experienced, and I know exactly what I need and what I need to do.
All right. So in January, you're starting to feel that regret. In March, the pandemic hits. What are you thinking at that point? And then when does the comeback become a real thing? Only once you hear that they move the games?
Sure. No. So in March, I was working in Manhattan, and I lived in Brooklyn. So, I would commute to work every day, take the subways. And in March, they announced that we all had to work from home. And so for March, that's when I started to work from home. And, literally I was confined to my apartment, 7 days a week. I went out once a week to go get food at the grocery store, which I had to wait in line to go into the grocery store. And after March, and I believe April, and then May came around, and May was when they started to talk about the games, and the games might not happen. And then the decision came to postpone the Paralympic and Olympic Games a whole year until 2021. And as soon as I heard that news, like something crawled in my head and was like, all right, you have a chance now. Like, you have an opportunity to get back into your training, because I had a year and some change essentially, and that's when I realized, you know what, I'm gonna go for it. I started calling a bunch of my friends, like wanting to get some opinions, like, what do you think I should do? What's your opinion? And after all that, after people telling me, you know what, you've done a lot, you should hang it up. Your time is over. Some people were like, yeah, go for it. Trust me, I heard it all, Clayton. Trust me. I heard it all.
You didn't call me. I would just have said, yeah, man.
I already knew what you were talking about. That's why I heard you already. I knew you were going to been like, go for it. And when they postponed it, I said, I'm going to go for it. And that's when I put 2 weeks into my job. I told them I was going to go train. The next step was to get out of New York, because I had nowhere to train in New York. I actually, when I first started training, I started running, and I would go out at 11 o'clock at night because there was no one outside in Brooklyn, and I would go for an hour run. And I did this for about a month while I was in New York. And then finally I got out of New York and I went to California, and I got to California and everything's closed again. And that's when I started to.
Was that July now?
That was in July. Yep, July, and everything was closed, and so I started going to the ocean, get some surfing and some swimming in, and then that's when I got the invitation from David Duchovny to come train at his private pool in Malibu, and from, I would say, August, September, October, for 3 months I trained. I drove from San Bernardino to Malibu and back 6 days a week to train in his pool by myself. And
for those that don't know Southern California, that's a brutal drive. Now we didn't have traffic as bad as it used to be, so it was
it was still a lot of traffic.
An hour and a half, 2 hour drive each way.
Well, if I hit traffic, it was going to be a 3 hour drive. So I planned it just right. Usually an hour and 40 minutes one way, an hour and 40 the other way. But I did that for 3 months, and I really got a good base in, which I really surprised myself, because initially I was thinking, man, how am I going to train by myself? Like, I got to self-motivate. I got to make my own workouts.
But you're so experienced.
Sure. But training by myself has always been one of my weaknesses. Like, it's just very hard for me to stay in the workout, stay in the session when I'm by myself. It's very easy to be like, all right, I got 4 more, maybe I'll just do 2. And then I'll do 2, and then I'll feel good about myself. I'll be done. So it's very easy to shortcut, your way through. But thankfully, with everything going on, I was able to stay focused and really get some good work in. And then I headed out to Colorado, where I'm at now. And I've been out here since November 1st, and I've been training very, very well here. Still training with one other training partner, but I'm feeling strong. I'm feeling like this first competition that I go to here very shortly, it's going to go very well. And essentially, I'm gonna prove to everybody that I'm not old, that I can still train and I can still swim pretty fast, and I'm on that track right now. So.
And if you get a certain mark, does that at the meet coming up, does that give you access to the training center or just the coaching staff, or does that improve things for you?
It will make things, one of my biggest challenges, because I'm so late in this cycle, is that I need to get reclassified. And it's very challenging because, I got first classified back in 1997 as a permanent. And since 1997, I've been the same classification throughout my whole career. And all of a sudden in 2017, 2018, they announced that they were going to redo the classification, and every athlete has to get reclassified. Yeah. Well, since I haven't been competing in the last 3 years, I have not had an opportunity to get classified. So, if I don't make the Tokyo Paralympic team next year, it's not going to be because of my performance. It's going to be because of some political reason, of some, procedure or something like that.
Just to break it down for people, because I had to go through this with Ezra on the track side. It's a super strange process because there are limited opportunities to get a classification, which is basically a medical exam putting you in a specific category or class, yes, as we call it, right? And so there's very few places to do that in the world. And so, yeah, in order to get one of those spots, you almost have to be delivering Paralympic times, yeah, to prove you deserve these scarce spots. And so is that what's going on with you, which is like that, you have to like deliver some incredible results in order to justify US
that I can get classified. That's exactly what I have to do. Yeah. And a part of me understands, because there are some athletes who have not been classified yet, who are in a position ahead of me. Yeah. And I fully understand that. If there's someone who's faster than me, I have no problem bending down the knee and giving them the opportunity. But if the case is reversed, then I'm going to be out there.
It may require some international travel, right?
Yes.
To get you that appointment, but you've got from now until then, right, to sort of make your case that you deserve a spot.
And that's what I've been training for. So we're on that path.
So I do have just sort of 2 last questions for you. And the first one is, I know you think and you believe in your heart that you are not self-made, that there has like been this, right? I know in your heart how you think about the world. There's a team that's been behind you, and maybe some have come and gone, but like, give me all the shout outs. Who are those people along the way, and even today, whether it's sponsors, mentors, you mentioned Bob Babbitt, I'm sure Bob's in it, but like, who else is in that world that, that either took you under their wing, mentored you, inspired you, maybe people you don't even know that inspired you, like, I don't know, like, who's in there that has gotten you where you are?
Absolutely. First and foremost, my family, without my mom and dad, my brothers and sisters, without their support, I definitely would not be where I am.
Every parent knows, right? The sacrifices you have to make to get your kid to that swim practice halfway across town in the middle of rush hour. It's such a pain.
Yeah, it is. And those 4 a.m. wake up calls from my mom to get to the pool at 5 a.m. is, it's brutal. So I'm very much appreciative. Bob Babbitt has been very much a father figure in my life. He's, helped me out. Been very instrumental in my growth, in just becoming comfortable with who I am as a person and being an ambassador for the Challenge Athletes Foundation. I've had a lot of supporters who have helped me get to where I am. And, unfortunately, there's been a few of them who have passed away. One of them very recently happened, Terry Martin. Mr. Terry was the first gentleman to spot me out at my first running race when I was 8 years old. And Mr. Terry was very instrumental in getting me involved in triathlon. And I did my first triathlon with Mr. Terry when I was 8 years old. And so Mr. Terry has been, very, very instrumental in taking photos and videotaping my early years as a young athlete. Robin Williams has been, a big friend of mine from when I first met him at the Malibu Triathlon in 1998. Mr. Robin and me, we did a relay triathlon every year for about 10 years in a row. So I still keep very much in touch with Robin's family, with his son Cody, so very dear to my heart. Just every single person who's involved with CAF, who has helped me grow to be the person I am, whether that's Jeffrey Esikow, Rick Kozlowski, Tabby King. I mean, the list goes on of how many people who have supported me and helped me throughout my journey. I know for a fact I would not be where I am today if it wasn't for them. And you guys know who you are. So I know I'm not saying every single name, but you know who you are, and I appreciate everything.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and then you're mentioning a bunch of legends, people that helped build the Challenge Athletes Foundation into what a powerhouse it is today, giving grants to thousands of athletes from around the world so they can do sport, right? It seems so simple, but it's beautiful what they do. All right, last question is, you're very experienced at this, and you've already peppered the whole show with great messages. But what message do you have for the world? And it could be, that adult that acquires a disability. It could be the little kid growing up that struggling. It could be somebody that doesn't even have a disability, right? What is the message? Your message for the world that we need to know?
Absolutely. I've been saying this since I was a kid, and I still say it today. My motto, which is a brave heart is a powerful weapon. I'm a firm believer that when you're able to help somebody fully realize their potential and to help somebody gain their confidence, there is nothing that they can't do, and that to me is something that I'm very proud of, that I've been able to be a part of many people's lives and in a small part. And I've always had this philosophy of I am just playing a very small part in something very big here. And I know what I mean with this whole adaptive sports movement. But to me, that's my life. That's my message. I want people to realize that life is going to be hard. There are going to be hard times in life when you feel like you can't do something, but don't listen to how you feel. Just go out there and do it. As we all embrace this philosophy of the real disability is a negative attitude. Mm-hmm. And I think if we can fully embrace what our potentials are, what our powers are, and not look at somebody with a disability as someone who is less than, or someone who is, who is not capable of. I think we'll make the world a better place, and I think that's what we're doing. So,
the one thing I really love about Rudy's story is how he has leaned into advocacy literally his entire life. He was one of the first mentors we ever met and is an important part of the Angel City family. And I'm excited to announce that he made his 5th Paralympic team this year. Watch for him in Tokyo. And in our next episode, we interview high-profile blind track athlete Lex Gillette, who recently made his 5th Paralympic team and is going to Tokyo. Watch Rudy and Lex in Tokyo.